name's Stephanie. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm up here because I have done this work and have had my life begin to shift in ways that I never could have hoped for prior to doing this work. And because of that, I guess I am uniquely qualified to offer suggestions and directions to somebody else who's seeking recovery. Before I did this process, I thought I had a lot of good ideas, but I didn't know what I was talking about. I feel today I have some glimmer of what I need to know to live a better life, and I can share those ideas and those experiences with somebody else. I was thinking this morning, because I knew it was going to be this step, this part of the 12th step, and I was thinking one of the best things I ever did when I started this process was coming in here and not being able to speak. I've heard a lot of people say that really bothered them, and I think it might have, my memory isn't all that great, but I think I do remember feeling a little bit like, wow, I can't say anything, I have things to say. But it really helped me to develop true humility, because to sit here and to listen to so many people that have real experience with what they're talking about, and they really have a message to share, oh my God. And you sit here long enough listening to that, and I sat here years before I shared, really makes you think, do I have something that's really necessary? That's the question. Is it necessary? Because I come from Irish stock, and Irish people do love to tell stories. At least that's my understanding. And that was my stock and trade, People would remark about, I'd go out in social settings and I'd, tell stories and I'd be entertaining, and, people really got a kick out of it, and they'd tell me so. So, that encouraged me more, And so, I was sitting here thinking as I got started, what do I have to say? What do I have to say? Well, I don't have anything to say. I have a message that was shared with me by my sponsor, by many of you people, and ultimately, that power, which is greater than me, and that's what I prayed for today, is that something of my message might come through as a result of being touched by that higher power. So, my experience with the 12 steps. First of all, with the 12th step. First of all, I was 12-stepped by several different people, and so grateful that I was. And I will go back and talk about my sponsor, and one of the things my sponsor did that was so hard for me to accept. So I just prepare you, if you are given the grace of the kind of sponsor I had, it might not feel all that comfortable at the beginning, because I thought that being a sponsor was being all the things that's talked about. This person was supposed to take me, the mess that I was, the many pieces that I was, and put me back together and make me okay. So when something wasn't going well, I can remember I would call her, and I would start to lay into my, and they did, and you wouldn't believe, and then this is how I was, and so much a victim, and blah, 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 blah. And she would listen for some point. She wouldn't let me go on and on and on forever. And she would finally break in and she'd say to me, when are you ready to not have your life be so colorful? And I'm telling you, when she first started doing that to me, what she was telling me is, let's get on with the work. But when she first started telling me that, I was like, how could she say that to me? But she was being so loving, and I didn't know it. She was hurting for me to hear me go through all that garbage I was living through. And she was truly asking me, when do you want to get better? Can we move forward? Do you want to take this on seriously? And she didn't do that the first time we talked, so I'm not implying that as a sponsor, that's the first thing, or when you're trying to help somebody get started, that's how you approach them. But I'm just here to tell you, this is a different kind of sponsorship than I ever had in any other situation. So my experience with reaching out to other women has been quite varied. I would say in my early days, I was afraid to reach out and say, I'll sponsor you. I didn't feel quite qualified. But people would ask me, and, I would hesitantly say yes, but I always knew that I had my sponsor in my back. She was at my back. And if I got to something, I kept telling myself, I can turn to her. But I also know that this book offers so many wonderful, very specific suggestions. I mean, it's chock full of what do you do here? How do you do that? What's the next step? What to avoid? What we should offer? And I think again is like that uniqueness of I know more about the twists of my mind, and I know. First of all, that I can tell somebody when I see them going into those little odd twists, I don't have to say, your thinking is a little screwed up. But I can say, I remember one time when I was here or there, and these are the things I tried. And somebody will say, something, that's exactly what I've been doing. And it's so much more effective. Also, the other thing I have learned that listening, I always thought you had to act, you had to be suggesting, you had to be in there just, grabbing on and leading this person. That's most of the time not necessary. One of the biggest things I've learned is to really, really, really listen. And when I really listen, I have something then. I can identify, I can say, oh yeah, I know what you're feeling. I was there. Instead of trying to tell them, this is the path you should take. This is how you do it. I also know with my sponsor, she always left me in a conversation feeling that she was in it with me to the extent that she was willing to help me move forward. And I think that's one of the things that I've tried to help other people know, that I'm not there to be the fixer, the solver. I don't know the answers, but what I know is what is the path, and I can show people that path. I can bring them back to this book. I can reassure them that, I have found relief, and that they probably will too. Let's see. There were several things that I wanted to pick out, and I probably will fumble here. I think, this line here really sticks out to me. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. The only condition is that he trust in God and clean house. Well, let me tell you that when I started in this process, one of the factors that was going on in my life was that my only child, my wonderful, brilliant, just terrific young daughter, had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And she was a teenager. So you put those two together and you want to know what hell is, there you go. As a mother, it was horrible. And I was thick into my disease. I couldn't stand anything or anybody in my life. I wanted this situation solved. I was blaming everybody else, the school system, the counselors, the hospital staff, whatever. I was blaming. And ultimately, I was blaming me, but I wasn't willing to look at that. But I thought I was ultimately causing a lot of what was going on in my life. And I know what finally got me was when I realized that there was only one way I could make my life better, and that was working on me. Couldn't change anything around me. I couldn't figure out an answer for my daughter. I couldn't figure out how I wanted other people to behave. I couldn't figure out why, my family reacted the way they did. I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do, and one day, if I could work on recovery and focus on my recovery, that one day, when I went to bed at night, at least I could thank God that I was sober, that I was, in contact with a possible solution for me, not for the things around me in my life. And, it was almost like having a little tiny light in the middle of a very foggy situation. And if I could just focus on that little bit of light, I could move forward in my day. And little by little, sanity returned to my life. It was incremental. I could only tell you that I am sitting here today. I have a relationship with my daughter, which is fantastic. She's living independently. And with God's help and grace, she'll get her PhD in July as a professor of nuclear physics. If I thought at the time I started coming to this meeting, I thought this girl was going to need to be cared for, that there was never going to be a life of independence. Now, am I telling you the picture is all rosy and bright today? No. There are concerns. There are still issues in my life. But today, I'm not going to fix everything and everybody around me. And that's something I have to share with other people. That awful pain, the terrible hurt. I can talk to people that your life can get better, even if the people around you are still sick. But the miracle is when I got healthier, she got healthier. She now turns to me and asks me my advice. What do you think? This is what I'm doing. I mean, this woman's so much smarter than me. She has so much more education than me, but she turns to me. And her friends think I'm this wonderful person. Let me tell you, at the time she was in high school, there were no friends that thought I was a wonderful person. Nobody. So I can tell you that you can get better. I can share that with people. I can share with people that I am much more of a person that contributes to this world than walks around asking people to take care of me. And the miracle is, it comes through doing service to others. That's the other part that is so amazing. It's when I'm reaching out to other people, that's when I get so much more back. I have people I talk to on a regular basis. They call me, at specific times during the week. And it's so funny because the themes that we talk about, often relate back to my life. Not intentionally, but it's like I can identify with their situation. I suggest something that I myself ultimately needed to hear. And so, I think that's the other thing is when we're supporting somebody else, we're not putting ourselves way up here, which is what I always thought. It was always they're better or I'm better. It was always this thing, either up above or down below. Either way. I couldn't go into a relationship without that. And I think one of the things that I have learned is I'm not better than or worse than anybody. Anybody in this world. When I try and offer suggestions to people, I'm not offering it like I am this complete, polished, wonderful product of the Big Book Step Study process. Because I'm just not. Anybody who's living this life knows there are days that you step in it and you have to clean your foot off because it was really not nice. And there's other days that somehow you don't, it goes really, really well. It doesn't have to do necessarily with what I'm doing, but it's my connection. It's my connection. And when I keep that really, really strong, that's when I have something to share. And that's when the magic, and that's what this 12th step to me is. It's really a process of almost being magical, that we can help each other, we broken people can come together, and we could make a better life for ourselves. Thank you.